From this point on, hopefully you get a little red light or something, but I'm just telling you that we are now recording from this point on. So welcome everyone. As I said, it is wonderful to have this opportunity to talk with you. We've got around 90 odd participants on this, which just shows you how much interest there is in this industry for latest news from software providers such as ourselves. So it's great to have you on board for the next maybe 75 minutes, depending on how Q&A goes. The agenda for today is going to be a little bit of an intro. I'm going to talk a little bit about the voice of customer. And then between the brains trust on here, which doesn't include me, it's people like Debbie and Scott. They're going to take you through what's new in 5.1.9, but also some things that are going on with our roadmap out towards the end of the year. So let me know in the chat or raise your hand if you can't see the slides, but I'm going to proceed as if you can see them and you can hear me clearly. Scott, if you can just monitor that for a couple of minutes in case there's a problem,
Sure.
that'd be awesome.
All right, we do have 4 hands up. If you're seeing the video and hearing us, well, if you're hearing us, I guess that matters. All right, so we've got a few more hands raising. Yep, now keep your hand up if you are having trouble with seeing the display.
You're doing break fix on the fly, Scott. I like it.
All right. Okay, so we've still got 3 people that are saying that they're having troubles with, or 4, with the display.
I'm not sure I can change that, to be quite honest, right now. I mean, the recording will obviously be made available. Maybe it's something to do with people's screens. Most people can see it, I think.
Right.
It's not ideal for everyone, but
yep, you may be able to change what you see on the screen by using the little view button that you see in the top right corner.
yeah, you can change your view using that. Anyway, let's proceed on if it's okay for most people. What we were just talking about then is something that we'd like to manage towards the end of this presentation. As you can see, a Q&A section there. We should have plenty of time for everybody's questions. And I'll moderate that at the end. So if you do have a question or a number of questions, please feel free to put them in the Q&A, which is the sort of Q&A. You should have a little 3 or something alongside that on the ribbon on this Zoom webinar. So please click on that and ask your question, as I'm sure most of you are now sort of aware of, and we will take those on point towards the end of this this presentation. So hopefully you can see that slide advancing. Let me know, Scott, if you can't. But it is wonderful on these occasions to be surrounded by clever people, and I'm lucky to have both Debbie and Scott on this call today. I'm sure you know these characters better than I do, but Debbie is our GM and Scott is a lead software developer, and they will take you through a lot of the content today that we have constructed for you. My role here is relatively new. I joined this business, I think, about 6 weeks ago, and I, full disclosure, do not have a background in energy or energy efficiency for that matter, but I do have a background in software, and I've worked for Microsoft, AWS. I was the number 9 employee for AWS in Australia. I've been CEO of businesses before, including ViaStream, and I've got some level of management experience that I'm hoping can offer the team some guidance as we go through the next couple of years and really develop market leadership position or sustain market leadership position in this industry. And my alignment is really around delivering customer value. And I just want to talk about that for a couple of seconds. So this person may not be familiar to you, but to me, he's sort of shaped my career in a way. And at the very core of what I've been able to do in any level of success in my career is to really follow this line. And Peter Drucker's got many quotes and lots of books on management and business development. But what he says is, what I believe in is really the purpose of a business is to create and keep a customer. And that's really what I've tried to focus on in the last 30 odd years or so. And you can see down the bottom a quote here that sort of encapsulates it all, if you like, for me. And that is that organizations, the best organizations do have a great product, but organizations have good products as well. But most of all, they need to develop an enticing customer experience. And loyalty and relationships create a repeat customer. But to do that requires a really deep understanding of the customer's needs, and it all starts with the customer. And so I'm really super keen to make sure that the feedback and the input that you have gets, first of all, understood by this business, and then how we utilize what I call the voice of the customer to make sure that the product aligns itself to what you want. And I think, having a clear understanding of how this product, has an impact on your business and your life, your personal life as much as your business life, for me is really, really important. And if we have voice of customer at the center of everything we do, then my experience tells me we don't go too far wrong. And so in that light, I just wanted to share a little bit of the early customer feedback. So I've spoken to around about 12 people so far, all assessors. Maybe some of those people are on the call and will raise their hand and say bullshit, but I've spoken to a number of you. And I just want to, first of all, thank you for that. And I am very keen, if possible, to speak to as many of you as possible. So I'll offer now to sort of suggest to you that if you do want me to have some time understanding what your concerns about our business and our product are, then please just pop your name in the Q&A and I will organize a time to speak with you. I think so far from the conversations I've had, at least, the feedback has been it's been useful for you as much as it is for us. So I'll make that offer to you now. But the feedback that I've gathered so far, I just wanted to share with you because I think it will define how this business, as in energy inspection, moves forward. And so there is a very strong feedback around the request and any product enhancements that we put into this to save you time. I've spoken to a number of you who said that with NCC 2022 in place, 7-star and whole of home, the time that you spend on getting to a point where you can create a certificate is just blown out. And so if there's anything that we can do to provide operational efficiency and time savings within the product, then Neil, please focus your team's time there. That was a very strong piece of feedback. I think it's fair to say that we have got some bugs that have taken way too long to fix. And so that absolutely will be a focus for us moving forward. And in fact, Scott and I and Debbie are talking about additional resources in the business to help to make sure those things are fixed in a timely manner. Because I think it's important for us to hear them and to do something about them. And then there are some features here that I've sort of just listed, and it's not an exhaustive list, but our ability to run 8-point multi-simulation with single button and get the model to spit out those simulations, I think is a feature that you've told me that you need. Simultaneous processing without making Bers Pro unavailable for modeling, so it just ties up the product. How can you run that in the background potentially and allow us to keep on modeling? I think it's fair to say that we do need to look at our capabilities around Class 2 multi-unit design. You've talked about WERS, making sure that libraries are available, particularly WERS. Can you improve the UI or certainly look at some workflow enhancements? So that was a very good piece of feedback from multiple people that we've taken on board. Look at your reporting and labeling. And do some work around training options. Give us a 100 level training workshop and Cert 4 courseware. So that is still front and center in most people's minds about having access to training. And I think every single person said to me, just engage us more regularly. Tell us what's happening, put some workshops on, et cetera, et cetera. So it's not an exhaustive list, but it is really, really powerful to get this sort of feedback. And I'm bringing that back into the business, and we're all working about how we can bring these things to bear. So with that in mind, what are we going to do about this? this particular feedback that I've just shared with you. As I said, the first thing is to continue to ask for that. It's priority number one for me to make sure that we continue on a regular basis to get this feedback. I am a believer in something called NPS, Net Promoter Score. I'm not going to go into the detail of that, but many of you may know what an NPS score is. It is a simple way of assessing where collectively customer feedback is at about the company and the product, particularly the product. And I put a baseline NPS score in place as a result of all of this feedback that I've got over the last few weeks. And it's fair to say that we need to do some work. But the great thing is it's very clear to us what we need to do. And so hopefully we will see that NPS score get better and better over time. And hopefully you as customers of ours will say things are improving. And that's really what we want. So put your name in the Q&A if you'd like, and I will follow up with you and I'll set up a 30-minute chat with you so that I can get your feedback, your requests, your guidance. A couple of people, by the way, have suggested that a customer advisory might be a good thing. I've run those in the past. I used to run it for Microsoft in the education business, and I also run it for AWS, and they are a lot of work, but they're very valuable. And so if people are interested in being part of that, then maybe that's something that we can explore. Alternatively, if you don't want to set up some time with Matt, it's perfectly fine because we're all busy people, but send me an email. You can see my email address there, or text me or call me. I'm very open to engaging with you in those contexts. So other things that we're going to do is increase our engagement with you and make it more regular through webinars and in-person workshops where practical. So the sort of team are committing for FY25 to run at least 4 webinars. We want to do an Eastern Seaboard workshop tour. And for other markets, we'll just work out how we can make sure that we are available to you and engaging with you. I think it's an enhancement of what we've already been doing. And I know a lot of you have given great feedback about Debbie and Scott already, which is great. But spending time with you face to face, in my view, is really important. And so we're going to build that in over the course of the next 12 months. We are investing in resources too, as I've just said to you, to do 2 things: to drive product quality on time, as bug-free as we possibly can, with features that make sense, that you have told us that you need. And then also to improve operational capability within our business so that we respond to things in the right way, that we are thinking about the right things, that we are executing on time, and all those sorts of things. We're going to focus our efforts in the next, if you like, 6 months or so on delivering 3 new releases leading up to Christmas 24. And I'll let the team talk to you about what's included in those things beyond 5.1.9, this update here. But what I can tell you is that most of those things are going to be focused on saving you time. And so making the time that you do spend in Bers Pro a lot easier and more intuitive. We're going to make materials available for training. So level 100, as I talked about, probably available through our website and then through our authorized training partners to do comprehensive training, which is a lot deeper and richer. So there's normally a cost associated with that. I don't think things will change there, but the level 100 certainly will be something that we will hold. We're revamping and releasing a new website early June 24. In fact, I wanted to announce that we were going to release it today, but what we've decided as a team is there are a few things we're not happy with, and we just need 1 more week really to make sure that those things are intuitive when you sign into the website and use the website facilities there. And then, of course, there is a rate of innovation that we want to ramp in terms of the product's future. And so we are exploring innovative new ways to bring value to you through Bers Pro. And that's like just a little teaser there. I'm not going to tell you what those things are right now, but there is a team at our business now looking to see what could 2025 deliver for us. So what I've talked about there in the next 3 releases will take us up to Christmas. But probably the most exciting part of what we're thinking about for you as users will be what we deliver next year. So I'm excited to just sort of lay that out there for you. So with that, as I said, we'll keep questions to the end, but that's great. Thank you for listening to me warble on there. I'm going to pass across now to Debbie, who is going to take you through the meat of what you've joined this webinar for. So over to you, Debbie.
Okay, so we've just released Bers Pro version 5.1.9, and we've moved to the new 10th engine. So the current version of Bers is 3.22. Scott, you're probably better to explain what's the difference between 3.22 and 3.23, and why have we moved across?
Okay, there's not a huge difference. The one key factor is that there is a new feature coming up in 5.2 that absolutely requires 3.23, and that is connecting to the Where'sLink database. So in order for us to use Where'sLink, we need to use the Chenath 3.23 version rather than waiting for until the next release. We wanted to get using this new engine as quickly as possible to make sure that it's still stable and works well with what we already have, so that we're not introducing too many changes all at once with 5.2.
So really 3.23 is exactly the same thermal background calculations. It's just got the extra API to allow us to connect to WHERS.
That's correct.
Excellent. Okay. All right. So another feature which is in Bers Pro 5.19 is we've increased our construction types from 10 to 20. This has been long overdue, and as an assessor, it's so good. Especially, we're gonna find that you're going to be using more construction types when you actually when we release version 5.2, because of the amount of windows and different types that we need to model in an average project. Anything to comment with regards to that, Scott?
No, just enjoy. We've now got the maximum number that is allowed by the Chenath engine, and yeah, let us know if you are experiencing any difficulties, but I don't think that you will. Just have a go and give us some feedback.
Yeah, so I think it's 20 is sort of like what all softwares are using at the moment. So yeah, it's unlikely that you'll exceed that amount. But like Scott says, at least that's a real good improvement within the software. So let's move on to the energy inspection website. Neil's been looking after this for the last 6 weeks. So Neil, do you want to provide us an overview with regards to the website?
Yeah. I'll talk talk real quick to this. My apologies for not being able to actually show you this today. As I just mentioned before, I just feel like there's 2 or 3 things that we need to improve, and we'll continue to work on that. And so we're thinking about launching either 6th or 7th of June. If people are interested, what I'd be very happy to do is to set up another 15-minute webinar. You will get some information, obviously, on what has changed here, but I'd be very happy to orientate you to this new look and feel. As you can see on the left-hand side there, some new graphics, a little bit more modern look. It's going to have some features in there, obviously, that will allow you to have better visibility of your purchases and tracking of your purchases through the website. It will be mobile responsive first with a modern look and feel, as it said there. And it's going to have easy access to news and training materials. So if you're looking at latest news from Energy Inspection and Bers Pro, it's going to be on the home page. It will have those training materials I talked about before. And in the future, it's going to enable the link to the CSIRO HSTAR portal, which is quite good news. And people have talked to me about why that makes such a difference to them. So that's good news that that's going to be built in. And also, you will be able to use an email and password in addition to your license key now to access the software. So I think that also gives people additional capabilities, and we're going to launch it next week. Really, in a nutshell, that is it. I don't think we need to harp on too much more about that, but I think it's a step in the right direction. I know it's been a long time coming as well, so we're excited to launch that next week. Here's a look, and just at one of the sites there, you might be able to get a sneaky look at the screen there and see some things being changed from our side. But I think we'll keep our powder dry on all of that and take you through it at the right time when it's ready to be released. So good effort there, Debbie, to try and get me to explain more and go more, but I'm going to hold that line until we're ready and we can really show you in some detail.
Oh, good.
Okay, so
Okay.
back to you then, Debbie, on the rest.
Yeah, so there's been a new floor material that's been added into Bers Pro. There has been a lot of chatter about Alpha Floor, and NatHers has had to get involved with regards to this because NatHers does have a specific material list that prevents NatHers software providers from deviating from that list. So with regards to Alpha Floor, yes, you could create a workaround, but the workaround was outside of what NatHers wanted. So NatHers has stepped in and basically said that Alpha Floor has to be modeled in a certain way, and that's it. It has to be modeled as per their requirements. So they've given us a breakdown of what that material should be and what it looks like, and it has now been added into Bers Pro version 5.1.9. On the right-hand side is a snapshot of our new updated manual. And on page 5, to try and make it very easy for users, we're going to now provide a update on what's going to be changing in every new version update. So really, the Bers Pro Manual 5 will keep increasing as we keep bringing in new functionality, as we bring in new instructions, or we tweak some of the existing functionality. And this is where you can get up to date. So you don't have to worry about reading the manual from start to finish every time. Go to page 5, see what's new, and it will keep evolving. Down the line, my intention is to amalgamate Manual 3, Manual 4, and Manual 5 together. With past upgrades, we've kept them separate. That's not ideal because sometimes I've got to send a user back to Manual 4 in order to get the background information in order to use Manual 5. So that's just a resource thing that we're going to be dealing with. But at least if you're an existing user, you're used to this. And look, you know, if you haven't read Manual 5, it's fantastic. It's 55 pages. We go into more detail probably than previous manuals. So you can actually download that from resources, and I suggest you give that a good read so you get the most out of the software. Okay, so what's next, Neil? If you can do the next slide for me. So 5.2. So this is now Scott. This is what Scott's been working on for the last, I don't know, about 8 weeks, which has involved lots of communication with AGWA, with WERS, with CSIRO, because of course the Accurate, I think it's called Sustainability, the new one. Yeah, Sustainability is the new one, has done a lot of the prior work with regards to working with AGWA and the WERS link. And just like Whole Home, it's a whole huge amount of programming. It's got a huge amount of information. So Scott, if you can explain the kind of numbers that you're having to deal with to make this work so that it's a seamless product for when we release in 5.2.
All right. So yeah, the WERS database is, well, it's large and it's growing. So you'll be finding new products will be popping in from time to time. Right now, there is 93,000 products that are available. Now, a great portion of those are now retired products or products that are no longer in use, but we still have about 47 perhaps 47,000 that are currently on the market. Now, with 47,000 products to select or to choose from, we've had to redesign our search engine for helping you to get to your windows more effectively. As you can appreciate, it's a lot different than the 100 or so that you may be used to using. So we've redesigned.
Scott, can I just ask a question? Why, if there's 96,000 on there and there's only 47,000 that are usable, why doesn't AGWA why are they still there?
All right, so the database includes everything that AGWA has assessed, which
Okay.
means that we're looking at past products as well as current products. Past products are there in their database, but we don't need to worry about them. As far as we're concerned, we're going to be starting with the 47,000 live
Okay.
products, but moving forward, as products are retired, we're going to keep those in our database so that when you open up an old project, what you'll experience is, well, you can actually see the smaller of the two forms on the screen there. What will happen is it'll open up, and this will happen for every project as we move into the WERS version 5.2. All of the products that don't have a direct connection into the WERS link database, you'll be seeing listed on the left-hand side, and then a suggested replacement, or if we can't work out a suggested replacement, a blank entry will be available on the right-hand side so that you can choose a replacement. Now, we don't want to get in the way if you just want to open and start work. So you can close that dialog without making selections from the new database. But please know that you're not going to be able to simulate until you have mapped everything successfully. Now, I'll go through a little bit more of that process a bit later on. But what I want to direct your attention to is the search capabilities. That's a larger window. Right up in the top left corner in the blue area is a product name. If your client has specified the exact product that they're after, you go straight to that box, you start typing, you find the item that you want. As it sort of narrows the list as you start typing, you select it, click OK, and you're done. Nothing more to be done. But if you don't know what you're looking for, well, the first three columns, sorry, that's the manufacturers, the filter box, and the performance value box. Those are going to look very familiar if you've ever gone onto the WERS website. We've tried to duplicate their search capabilities there. You'll be able to select multiple manufacturers, and then as far as frame material, style, and type and so forth are concerned, you just select one of those. Those little boxes that you see next to them, check boxes, tells you whether or not that item is actually participating in the filter or not. Now, the very last column, the one that has uvalue and SHGC, that's something that we've kept from the old Bers version. Now you'll notice the little boxes are sitting underneath. That is because in current Bers, you'll find maximum and minimum stacked on top of one another, and uvalue and SHGC at the top of those columns. We didn't want to change that on you because we know that habits are a hard thing to break, and if you're used to entering data vertically, we don't want to confuse you by swapping it around to the horizontal orientation and have you enter in the SHGC into a U value box. So we're just mindful that we want to keep the user interface as similar to you as possible to lower the friction of this change. The
So
last
pretty
area,
much that,
yep.
Sorry, Scott. So pretty much the blue ribbon, the first white box, the 4 drop-down boxes, and the max U value and solar heat gain, that's pretty much almost a mirror image of WERS, which we're all used to using. And then we're keeping that consistency on the right for Bers Pro's users if you want to search in a different way.
Yeah,
with all the search information coming up on the bottom white panel there. Yeah.
So once you've done your filtering, you might end up with, might still have, say, 130 items to choose from. From there, there's a little search area in that bottom white box. You can start typing further criteria in there, and anything that's in that area, in that white box, will be filtered down by what you start typing. So that'll quickly allow you to quickly limit your selection to just a few items, once you've selected one, click OK, and your searching is complete. You've found your image.
Excellent. So the images that you can see at the moment, they're still in development mode. They're not actually refined enough to show you what they're going to look in the website. Sorry, not the website, the software, but you can get an idea. So yeah, we've still got programming code on there at the moment. So it's going to, you can still see it's going to have that look and feel of Bers Pro, but it's not in its polished entirety at the moment, is it, Scott?
No, no. Well, I was hoping to show that to you today, but unfortunately, there's I took the old system out, and that's caused me a few headaches over the last few hours.
So I mean, just to give you guys an update to where we're at. So Scott's literally in the last, I don't know, few days of finishing the WordLink programming, which then gets released to me in a beta version so that me and my team can do the testing. We do sometimes send out beta versions to Bers Pro users. You know who you are. So if you would like to have a look at the beta version, currently we cannot use the WordLink in a commercial capacity until we finish signing the CSIRO, sorry, not CSIRO, AGWA legal document, which isn't yet ready. That's going to be ready next week. So it just shows you that even though we're doing the programming at the moment, some of these things do actually happen right at the last minute. Even if we get the WordLink ready for 5.2, we're going to have to wait for the AGWA documentation to be legally signed before we can actually release it commercially. So I've been speaking to AGWA and everything's happening as we speak. We should be getting the legal documents through to us next week. And Scott, when do you think we'll be getting the beta version? When do you think I'll be getting my hands on the beta version?
It'll be this week, Debbie. I've just tidying up the last few things after removing the prior Windows system, and so you'll be getting that possibly today.
So, I mean, you know, for an energy assessor, the WordLink is going to make not energy assessing, modeling so much easier because we're actually going to get our hands on complete up-to-date data, which means we're going to be able to, it's going to hopefully assist us in getting 7 stars and the best outcomes for our projects. So long overdue. And hopefully, I mean, once I've done the beta testing and we've made sure that it's working correctly and smoothly, we then have to submit that to NatHERS because any change to any version is called a minor change and you have to go through minor reaccreditation. And just to give you an overview of that, because we've never really spoken about that in much detail, is Energy Inspection has to get 3 software files. We have to run it through entire thermal, entirely whole of home, to re-accredit the software to make sure that any changes that we've made to the latest version is not going to affect what we were initially accredited on. So that normally takes a 2-week process. And then when NatHERS finishes re-accrediting it and confirming that there have been no changes, it then gets sent to ABCB to get the final approval that it can go out. So you can see there's a process involved that that does slow down version releases, and sometimes we don't get them out as quickly as we would like because of that whole process. But based on this one, I would hope that we're going to be getting this out towards the, I'd say towards the end of June, if everything aligns up nicely. Okay, all right, so on to the next, what's next?
Did I just hear you say end of June?
What have I promised you, Neil?
Well, I'd be happy with end of June. Let's just update your KPIs to that, shall we? And move on.
have I said mid-July? I can't remember.
So
I'm going to have to deliver mid-June now, aren't I?
You are. There's a question I'm going to just ask it now while we're on WordLink from Marcelo, if you don't mind, Scott. Marcelo's asking, will we be able to set up a short list of favorites in the WordLink?
That is a great idea. And if the legal documentation takes too long, I might just add it because it's a great idea.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a great idea. It's you know, with myself, you know, I probably have three main manufacturers I use, unless I've got a client that's just, you know, find the best U values. So really, Scott, that would be a great ad.
Yeah, certainly would be. Marcelo, if that doesn't answer your question, let us know. But I'm ticking that off that we've given you at least a response to look at this further. All right. So with that in mind, we're at 46 minutes and tracking quite nicely. But let's go forward now and talk about productivity with 5.3. Over to you, Debbie.
Lovely. So again, I'm going to pass this to Scott. I work very closely with him with regards to making sure all of these items are included into the software in a way that it's going to work seamlessly with the way we're already modeling. Some of the screenshots, again, especially the ones on the bottom of the PowerPoint, they're still in coding display, and they will not be refined until the coding has finished. So if you're looking at them and thinking, oh, that looks a bit basic, it is, because that's just coding. Scott makes it all pretty for the interface before we deliver. So Scott, I'll hand over to you to explain what 5.3 is, because 5.3 is pretty much the biggest change that we're going to be doing with the software. So over to you, Scott.
All right. So I've been involved for about the last, well, coming up 2 years now with the software, working behind the scenes, working with Bers Pro as it is in, or as it was. The things that I've been working with up until now have been things like the whole of home. However, having used this for a while, I've noticed there are some things that, at least for a novice like me using the product, it's really slowed me down. Things like having to go through multiple windows to get places, having to move focus from one area of the screen across to another area of the screen in order to get things done. Now, part of this I understand. You don't want your editor sitting over the top of your model if you need to reference your model. But there are some things that we are trying to get rid of. Now, the tightrope that I'm walking here is I need to make sure that it feels familiar to you, it feels intuitive to you, so that all of you faithful Bers Pro users don't have to relearn anything as the new versions come out. But by the same token, I need to improve the productivity. I need to get the application out of the way of you doing your work so that it's working with you instead of against you. So some of the things that we'll be doing, you'll notice up in the top left corner of the display there's a couple of drop-down menus. Now, right now, when you click on a zone, it opens up a dialog box off to the corner of the screen. You have to track your cursor over there, make a selection, and then open up another screen. What we're doing is we're changing that to this drop-down menu. Now, the larger of the two, the one on the right-hand side, allows you to change the name of your zone as well as the type directly from that area. It's also got a few other handy little buttons and bits and pieces that will be right at your fingertips as soon as you right-click on that zone. Just next to it is the same pop-up menu, but this time we've clicked on a wall, and as a result, we've got different options. So this is designed to give you something that feels familiar, but is sort of getting out of the way. So that little dialog box that pops up to the right-hand side that always gets in between you and your editor, that's going. Instead, we've just got this menu that can do pretty much all of that functionality, but right where you click rather than somewhere else. Some other things we've got, multi-simulation. That's what's caused this version to be delayed. We wanted to deliver this to you much earlier, but we needed to do a huge rewrite underneath the software, packaging up all of the parts of a model so that we can do what you call sandboxing. What that means is that at the time that you press simulate, what happens is we take a copy of your current model and we put that in its own little sandbox. It then sits there waiting for its opportunity to be simulated, which might be immediately. In fact, one of the things we're looking at is trying to, depending on your processor, run multiple simulations all at the same time. So you can just keep on simulating and doing more simulations, and they can just stack up, waiting for their chance to go, and perhaps 3 run at a time. Or if you've got a really beefy machine, it could be 7, or it could even be 15. The one thing we need to be careful of is not to oversaturate your machine so that you end up having your user interface experience interrupted by too much background processing. So we'll always keep the application responsive even after you've queued in some simulations to run. Now, because it's sandboxed, the one that you're simulating just sits there in its own little sandbox. You can continue to work on the very same project, making additional changes while the simulation is going on. Or you could swap to a different project. We can have multiple projects open at the same time, and each one of them can have simulations sitting in the background waiting to be processed. And as you do that, you'll end up with a list on the side showing you all of the simulations that are either queued in being processed, or once they've completed processing, you'll then be able to access them in a similar way to the way that you do now by selecting any one of those finished simulations and opening up the analysis screen.
So I could continue working and run some batch R&D work with the 8 orientations and continue my my production.
Yep, absolutely right. Yeah, we really don't want to stop you from working, certainly not for something that should be a background task. So we're now changing the way that the system works so that that's a reality for you. I did allude to multi-project. We're really happy about this. This is going to allow you to open up more than one project at the same time. And with that, you're going to be able to move some design elements from one to the other. Obviously, this is going to be a big improvement for anyone who's doing a class 2 and you need to copy things from one area to another. But this will also be really good for you class 1s where you just need to move something from even from different versions of the same, or different runs of the same model. So if you ever need to copy between any 2 projects, it's going to be much easier. You can just use your copy features across projects.
Excellent.
Lastly, the interface compatibility. One of the things that we were looking at doing is giving you a new interface where you can actually see the wall thickness on the screen. Now, we realize that some of these changes are going to look a little jarring to Bers Pro users, but they're probably going to look a little bit more familiar to users of First Rate 5 or Hero. We don't want to leave our Bers Pro users behind in this. So what we're going to do is we're going to allow you to have different ways of looking at your data on the screen. If you like the Bers Pro simplicity, then you're going to have the option to keep that simplicity. It's going to look like the old Bers Pro, while still having all of the new features of the new system. If you want it to look like First Rate 5 or Hero, well, there's a system, there's an option for that as well. We're introducing color schemes. Color schemes are nicely coordinated colors for each of the different elements. There'll be about half a dozen different color schemes that you'll get out of the box that are all nicely color coordinated. But if you want to make your own, that will also be an option. You just create your own color scheme, and then as you open a project, doesn't matter who it comes from, you'll be able to have your color scheme imposed on those drawings so that it all makes sense to you. The only exception to this is if you've deliberately gone and colored a zone with a certain color. We still allow you to choose an overriding color for individual zones. One other thing I should mention is that we now have a capability, or we now show you measurements as you design. So as you're creating a zone, or as you're measuring out a plan so that you can scale the plan to your model, you'll now notice that with those other two images that you see down the bottom there, you're going to get lots of feedback. You're going to be able to see the length of the lines. In the case of drawing a zone, you can see from the origin point, that's like in that picture at the top left, that's the origin point. I've then gone around the bedroom until the cursor is currently sitting in the middle of my third wall. I haven't actually committed to that point yet, but you can see that it's showing you the angle that I'm at on both from the last point I've done and from the final point of the wall of the zone, as well as the length. So you're getting plenty of feedback in order to make sure that that zone is as you expect it to be. And that other little sliver of an image just next to it is doing the measurement. There's what you see underneath there is an image of your plan that has a scale listed on the plan. What we do is we just start at one point, we draw it to the other point, and once you've selected that final point, you'll then be asked how many millimeters, not meters, but millimeters are that represents, and the image just scales. So we're making that side of things a little bit slicker as well.
Excellent. So I had to interject a little bit when we were talking with Scott regarding interface compatibility. As a user, I love Bers Pro as it is. Yes, I want more features. Yes, I want to be able to model quicker. But at the same time, I also want business as usual. So to move to a new interface is something that we don't want to take lightly, which is why we've decided to design in two different interface modes. So you've got the current interface mode, so you can continue business as usual, where a wall thickness, as you know, is just shown by one line, or you can move to the new interface, which is similar to Hero and is similar to First Rate 5. And that's not on purpose. That's because when you have to design a wall thickness with coding within the software, it just naturally looks like that, which is why Hero probably looks like First Rate 5, because of the way the wall thickness has got to be coded. So that's where ours looks similar, which is going to be great if you're a Hero user or a First Rate 5 user. You're going to be able to jump into Bers Pro and use the similar interface mode. Or if you are a Bers Pro user and you want to stay with the current look and feel, you can swap between the two. It's up to you. So we're trying to make the new version updates as easy for users to
Navigate
absorb into the business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. We should rattle on just so that we've got enough time for a bunch of questions that are sitting in the chat or in the Q&A. So you okay if I carry on here?
Yeah, so I was just going to say with the previous screenshot is because of this functionality change, this may be where we introduce the new Bers Pro 5, because it's new code, it's new interface, it's completely new functionality. Or on the next slide, we maybe introduce the Bers Pro Plus, because there are potentially going to be two different pieces of software. You've got the Bers Pro 5, which will be version 5.2, which is written on the existing code, which will not allow for the elements of version 5.3 to be introduced, which then means at that point we may use and introduce Bers Pro Plus. But that's just to keep you in the loop with the renaming to, I suppose, put a line in the sand with regards to where the advanced functionality is really going to be coming in. So Scott, do you want to go into version 5.4? And all of this is supposed to be delivered before the end of the year, isn't it?
Yep. This one here will be a very nice Christmas present for those people who are looking for some more productivity gains. Now, this here is way out, so I can't give you a huge number of details about it. One thing that I will say is that it's going to allow you to get the program to do the heavy lifting when it comes to some of those changes that you'll probably be encountering a lot of as we move into the new 2022 standard. You're going to find that a lot of designs are going to come in probably under the required limits. And so getting it up to those limits, we're going to give you ways of doing that. Monte Carlo simulation, that's essentially you give us some parameters about what you think might want to change. You tell us what some of these costs are, or at least in your estimation, and it will go through and work out based on your choices what the cheapest way of getting from point A to point B is, where point B is accreditation for your design. Now, this is also classed as optioneering. It's engineering using options. So you'll be able to go through and make deliberate decisions, find out which one of them is the most appropriate for your client, and then allow the client to move forward with the option that is best for them. With this, I've told you a little bit about the what can be done with the new Bers Pro Plus as far as being able to copy between projects. That's the tip of the iceberg. When we're looking at what else we can do, we're going to find we've got ways that we've got planned that are going to accelerate your Class 2 simulation process or modeling process to a whole new level. You'll be able to very quickly model an entire apartment building and make modifications to it at the drop of a hat. We think that this is going to be an absolute killer feature for everyone who's doing Class 2 for large apartment buildings where there's a lot of duplication of work.
Awesome. Is that you done on that slide, Scott? Could we go to Q&A, or do you have anything else? Yeah.
No, that's it. I can't. I'm got to be a little bit cagey with these details. Let me just say that it's going to be an absolute killer feature for anyone on Class 2, and of course, we're just the Monte Carlo and optioneering is a must-have for Class 1.
Awesome. All right. Well, I think we've got a few minutes left, right? And there's a bunch of questions in here. So I'm just going to moderate these and ask you guys, so Debbie and Scott, to comment on them. I'm going to start with Dennis Jones, who actually asked a question before the webinar opened up, right? So this is pre-webinar question, 11:59 this morning, Eastern time. So he's got a couple of questions here, but I think you probably heard this first one anyway, Debbie. But can Bers be used successfully for a house on stumps with an open underneath and still gain a 7-star rating?
It doesn't matter what piece of NetHearse software or what software you use. Achieving 7 stars for a house on stumps is just difficult. So the answer to that is yes, you can, but you would have to work very, very closely with the designer. You would actually have to get your glass to floor area absolutely spot on, orientation, don't have overshading, insulation levels have to be high. And yes, the client's probably going to have to spend more money than they want because that kind of design is difficult, regardless of what software you use. So Dennis, you know, if you've got lots of those projects coming in, then yeah, it's a tough one.
I think for the answers that we're giving here, by the way, everyone, if we're not answering it to your satisfaction, either put another question in, follow up in the Q&A, or reach out to us afterwards and we'll take it offline. just conscious of people's time here. Dennis also asked, by the way, do you send a certificate at the end to indicate that we have attended this webinar? I didn't. I'm not quite sure of the context there, Dennis, why you need a certificate. I guess some sort of...
It's because as an accredited assessor, you need to do a certain amount of professional CPD points, and if you email to the support, we'll send you one.
Awesome. Okay, so that we've sort of tackled that one. Thanks, Dennis, for your question. Daryl, John, Marchand then said ideas for Bers, and then sent another follow-up. So this is a bit of gold feedback here, I think, for you, Scott. But
yeah,
he said, look, some ideas: loss of stairs and voids after saving and reopening files. So I think these are probably either enhancements or bug fixes, but loss of stairs and voids after saving and then reopening the file was the first one.
So that's a historic issue for version 4.4, which we need to address.
Awesome.
And look, you know, it's not great to have to ask you guys to do a workaround, but it is a historic thing, and we will be including it in. I'm really hoping it's going to get into 5.2, if not 5.3. But all I would suggest is you do not model voids until you've finished your modeling. And if you go back into the project afterwards to maybe tweak a zone, you should ideally take the void out, tweak the zone, put the void back. And that workaround works. I've been using it for a while. We will fix that for sure.
Yeah, that's not going to be a problem for 5.3. We're renewing all of that
Of course,
management code. But yeah, 5.2, I'll see what I can do. That's legacy code, and working with legacy code's a bit tricky, especially in when you're short of time.
The second point in Daryl's question was around this labeling zones, which I got feedback from when I spoke to a few customers.
Yeah,
no more than 15 characters.
I can give you some feedback on that. So pretty much in the thermal element of the software, you can name a zone to as many characters as you want. And when we had the programming for whole of home provided to us, connected to the CSIRO Cheneth engine, the Cheneth engine only allowed a maximum of 15 characters. So we only found that out once there were issues coming back with whole of home, and we realized it was tied to 15. So even though thermal can have more than 15 characters, whole of home is only tied to 15 characters. So this is where we have now put a alert on that if you go over 15 characters, it will just tell you you cannot go over 15 characters. So Daryl, that is actually now a pop-up flag in version 5.19 to actually aid you when you're naming your zones.
Yeah. Now we've reached out to CSIRO to ask if we can get that limit extended, and while the conversations have been good, we haven't seen anything yet. So as soon as that character limit increases, we'll be increasing the character limit for you as well.
Okay, let's move on. I found one I can answer, so that's this one across. Is there a contact phone number for energy inspection regarding issues? It's actually a discussion that we're currently having, Daryl. So I can't commit that we are going to provide that yet, but it's definitely on our agenda, and we'll make a decision on that shortly. And then the fourth question there was default windows with higher SHGC to help dwellings past 7 stars.
So we can't set the default solar heat gain. That's set by the Cheneth engine. That's set by NatHERS. When we do link to the WERS, you will have access to the entire catalogue. So you will have a bigger array, but default is something that's controlled by AGWA, CSIRO. We as a software provider do not get involved with any of the window solar heat gains or U values. It's what it is. We just have to use what's provided to us in accordance with the NatHERS accreditation requirements.
Yeah. Now, One thing I wanted to mention with that is we can't change the items in the WERS database, so speaking about 5.2 going forward, but what we may be able to do is allow you to choose a more advantageous window to use as your default, not the default, but as your own personal choice or window.
Awesome. Okay, moving on. Somebody has asked, will the certificate fees increase anytime soon? Can you please give at least 3 months notice so we can inform our clients and not absorb the increase in our client contract costs and fees? I think like any business, you're always considering your business model, your processes, and of course, pricing and associated costs. I can tell you that if we do choose to increase prices, we'll do it and give you plenty of notice. But right now, there's no decision in our business right now to do that. So stay tuned, maybe in the future, something there. Carrying on, will there be an option to use multiple cores in our CPU for the simulation? When I model these huge homes, Bers Pro starts to lag when I do anything like move a node or select windows and doors.
Okay, so there's a lot of different questions packaged up in that.
Mm-hmm.
First one, will you be able to use more cores? The simulation engine is a product of CSIRO, so we don't get to change that, and neither do our competing software products, not unless I want to write their own engine, and no one's been brave enough to do that. What we can do is we can improve the response of the application itself, and you'll find that in 5.3, the responsiveness is going right up. We've been working on 5.3 in the background for quite a while now, and what you'll be finding is that it's going to be as smooth as you could possibly imagine, even with background simulations happening, because what we'll be doing is that multiple simulation thing. If you've got 4 cores in your computer, 3 of them are going to be available for simulations, and the 4th one is going to be used to make sure that you get a good user experience.
Okay. Next question. Please include wall and roof solar absorbance in the new pop-ups and the building elements report. Scott?
Okay, sorry, I was just doing a little bit of background work there. Please include, sorry, what was that, wall and roof solar absorbance in new pop-ups?
Yeah.
All right, yep, we'll definitely take that on board.
Okay, very good. Tim asks, in whole of home, referring to heating and cooling, apparently in basics, there's an option to select no heating or cooling, whereas Bers has a default that is air conditioner. Can you comment on that?
So whole of home is set up in accordance to the NatHERS requirements, and all software providers follow the requirements that if you do not know the heating and cooling load, unit, you have to select default. Basics is a completely different system that doesn't deal with NatHERS whole of home. So I'm not actually a Basics. I don't do a lot of work in New South Wales, so I can't really comment on that, other than Basics rules and regulations are completely different from the NatHERS whole of home rules and regulations.
Okay. There's more and more questions coming into this Q&A, which is fabulous, but I am very mindful of people needing to get off and complete their day with other things. But
well, we can continue, because I think the Q&A is really good, and if people got to drop off, they can drop off.
Yeah, we're going to keep on going, because I said that we were going to answer people's questions. So, right, okay, so carrying on. Ian is asking, with the split ceiling, can you change the slope of the ceiling and type, say, kitchen at level and open dining at ceiling, living ceiling on a rake?
Is that to get it on the certificate like that, or because you can actually select a sloped ceiling at the moment? I assume that's just because you want it to be shown on the certificate. I'm not sure. Maybe send that one through and we can answer it in a bit more detail and deal with that one offline, so I can properly understand it.
It might be related as well, but there's a follow-up question from Ian here that says, will it be possible to change the wall thickness, say internal walls 70 plus 2/10 to 90 plus 2/10? So changing wall thickness, internal walls.
I believe that can be done, but the way that the current material construction is at the present is that you've got a limited number of options when it comes to walls. Some of them are going to allow you to change your wall thickness one way, and others will allow you to change them another, while there are some that just don't change wall thickness at all. Now, we've had discussions about an entirely new system for construction materials. I don't know if it's going to make it into this year. We've had a few discussions about that, so I won't speak to what may happen in the future. What I can say is that if you need a 90 option, then we could possibly generate a new wall for you and add that into our next update.
Yeah, if you can provide us some further details on that, then we can put that into our catalogue.
So we need to reach out to Ian then on that.
Yeah.
Somebody has then asked, and this has probably saved my career multiple times, are we going to get an undo button?
You answer that one, Scott. I've asked Scott that question 3 or 4 times, and it's more complex than you think, isn't it?
Yeah, again, that's not possible with the codes in the current version or in 5.2. 5.3 moving forward, just like you've got sandboxing, undo is going to be a thing.
Okay. Marcella's come back with a follow-up question around 15 characters. So Scott, when I enter a new unconditioned or conditioned garage, oh, sorry, that somebody's just put another question there, so I lost it. Or glazed common area, and then go to set the name for the zone before plotting, you get the pop-up error regarding the 15 characters after entering 1 letter, and I need to dismiss the error before I can continue.
Yes, there was a bit of a discussion on that as well, whether or not we should have a pop-up let you know what was going on, or whether we should just block you from typing that extra letter and send some sort of audible feedback that you've reached the end of what you're allowed to type. We felt that at least for the interim, while we're making this change, it's important for people to understand why all of a sudden they can't keep typing. So if that message has been received by you, then we can make that disappear in 5.2 and just put that into the status bar instead.
Okay. That's a good answer. Gambis is asking, is there a chance to enter manually and use proposal window with its own U value in SHGC, or have to use product from library?
That's something that unfortunately we don't get a choice in the matter of. Nat says that what we use has to be accordance to what they've provided or WERS has provided. So yes, it's going to have to match something. One thing I can say is that when you've got 47,000 different products to choose from, you're going to find what you need, and it's our job to help you find that as simply as possible.
Okay. There's another question here. How does the new Bers ratings compare to other software types?
So all 3 software providers have the same benchmark goals, and all 3 software providers have a series of projects that we have to model in the software with the same parameters and the same floor areas and same glazing types.
Yeah.
And we simulate them through all 69 different climate zones. We simulate them with timber stud walls, with steel stud walls. We've got a Class 2 project, and all those outcomes have to be within the benchmark, and we're all within the benchmark. So to say how do they all compare, they should all compare absolutely equal. Where there is a issue potentially where they don't compare equal is when one assessor models a zone different from another, and you're always going to get that. So when we've done research, we've got one assessor to model the same house in 3 different pieces of software, just as an exercise, because this question comes up a lot. And when you've got the same inputs across the same software, the outcome's always going to be the same. What happens is you might get one provider doing an assessment and getting 6 stars in one software, and another assessor using a different software and getting 7 stars in another software. The difference in outcomes is nothing to do with the thermal background. It's to do with data inputting, because all NatHERS softwares follow the same requirements for thermal and whole of home. So hopefully I've answered that question. It's normally the input that is changing performance from software provider to software provider.
Okay. Just calling out here that we've still got probably 20 questions to go through here, some of which we may have to take offline, but we'll keep going at the moment. We've still got 100 people on, so I think maybe there's some value here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so let's carry on. In the new Bers, so 5.17, 5.19, while updating internal walls from defaults, the option only those having default values does not work, while it used to do so in Bers 4.
Right.
So it must be a regression problem here.
So in 4, you only had timber, and in version 5, we had to include steel. So in version 5.17, he's correct. You're absolutely correct. I'm not sure who answered that question, but you're correct. The whether you changed from steel to timber or you included a thermal break did drop out. That has been addressed in version 5.1.9. So some of the questions that have come up today have been addressed in 5.1.9. So please make sure that you download the latest version, because a lot of these issues will automatically disappear.
Right. Now, I think this question is more relating to a particular type of update where you're only you're updating a subset of the, you know, so there may be 5 different types of walls, and you only want one type of wall to change from one to another. Now, I'll need to spend a little bit more time looking at how that works in the current version. It may be that I've missed 1 or 2 criteria, and again, with the addition of these new elements, maybe they aren't part of that check to see if we've got matching materials.
So we do have that feature and that functionality to the external walls. As an assessor, I've probably not come across the need for that, so I can't comment on that. So whoever's put that through, if you can provide us some additional information, we can look into that feature as a possibility.
It's an anonymous request, so if you're still on the call, then maybe reach out to us.
Yeah.
Daryl's got a question particularly related to Queensland, right? Are we able to push back on allocation of heating and cooling defaults to zones that haven't got heating? Sorry, I lost that off the screen.
So again, this is a NatHERS rule, because first of all assessors have to model in accordance to the NatHERS tech note. And if you have an internal wet area that has no natural ventilation, it has to be modeled as daytime. So a daytime zone has heating and cooling loads applied to it. Now, we know nobody's going to be artificially heating and cooling that internal bathroom, but NatHERS had to put through a set rules in order for the thermal element to work in conjunction with the whole of home element. So look, yes, you do have to set heating and cooling to those zones, even though that we know that they're not heated and cooled, but the additional load that's being added to whole home is so minimal, it's almost a background thing. Have you got anything more to add to that, Scott?
I was just going to say that when we did all of our accreditation, what would happen is you would have your set appliances, and then there is a default that is used particularly for these situations. Now, the default appliance is actually going to have some load, but it's designed to have, I guess, a compromise load for anything that you really don't want to model. Unfortunately, that's just the way that this modeling software works. You'll find the same sort of conundrum if you go to any of the other products, because this is a NatHERS requirement.
Okay, carrying on. So Kieran's got a question here about including stuff on certificates. So are we able to have certificates note external wall shade as it does for solar? External wall shade as well as solar absorbance as it does for roof type.
So just say that one more time.
Are we able to have certificates note external wall shade as well as solar absorbance as it does for roof type?
Okay.
Well, if we can, that's a 5.3 thing, isn't it?
Well, the certificates are not something that we control either. We provide the data for it, but at the end of the day, those certificates are controlled by NatHERS. So we can certainly send this feedback back to them and say, look, this is something that we want, or some of our users want on the certificates, and then they can change the standard to include that, and then it'll all happen from there.
So we need, the request is adding something on the certificate that highlights, the wall shade as roof type, has solar noted on there. So absorbance of solar. So I think, yes, we could probably reach out to them. Zoran has got a question about when we have vertical shading on the balustrade that affects the bedroom sliding door, though it's 1.5 meters away, should we still use vertical shading for the window itself, such as louvers or blinds? Using shading on neighboring objects is not possible because there's a window below. So there's a bit of detail in there if you followed along with that.
Yeah, I think so this is where we're getting into training, which is what we want to do with our roadshow. And this is what we want to do with our regular webinars, because this is now moving into not what's happening from version 5.17 to version 5.19. This is actually just please reach out and we'll have a one-on-one Teams. And this is what we're going to be doing with future training. But no, you wouldn't do a vertical shading, and I'll explain that when you reach out.
Look, we've still got 95 people on, so let's carry on for a few more minutes. Julian has got a quick question here regarding, with floors, you can specify meter squared to outside. Is it possible to get something similar for a roof?
Yes, it's possible.
Right.
It's just please send it in, and we can we'll take all the feedback on board, and we'll address them one at a time. This is really good to be getting all this feedback.
Yeah, so it's gold. Thank you for your question, Julian. Just send us the detail and we'll come back to you. Anonymously, somebody said, if an owner wishes to build a house without heating and cooling, why do I have to select default in whole of home?
These are all the questions I've asked NatHERS when I've been in the meetings.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter what that owner's going to do. They may never put artificial heating and cooling in their home, but at some point that house will get sold and you cannot control what the future owner is going to do. So whole of home is to deal with, as NatHERS is with the modeling, to deal with worst case scenarios all the time. So it has to be included, even if the client has no intention of putting heating and cooling within.
I think the comment here is that it's counterintuitive because they'll have a worse whole of home rating than inputting a air conditioner.
Yeah, exactly right.
They will, and regardless, they'll still have to meet the 60 whole of home minimum requirement, because that's the NCC benchmark. The NCC does not deal with ifs and maybes. It will say that at some point this home could have artificial heating and cooling installed.
Rolling on. Daryl says, still getting questions. Is it possible to get a visual representation of wing walls, overshadowing and eaves, including connections in the modeling screen?
Yeah, I mean that's got to be additional training on the top of the list. And wing walls is something we're going to be addressing in 5.3. There's so much
Yep.
to deal with.
Okay.
Yep.
Term A is asking, will the new Bers allow for multiple selection of external walls, for example, rather than having to click on each wall and change the type there? This is where we have both external and neighbors walls, and we want to change the installation to all external walls only. He says he hopes that makes sense.
It does
Yep,
make sense.
makes sense. Yeah, Bers 5.3 will allow you to select multiple elements. Now, it's going to be difficult to select multiple walls using the Bers interface because walls are just so thin. You know, so you might find it a bit frustrating if you click past a wall and then you click a zone instead. But if you were to just expand it out for that moment so that you can click all of your walls, yeah, I don't see why we couldn't do that, where we could have just the walls selected, change, and so you're editing group walls. One of the things I would say though is if we're going to try and do something like that, there may be an issue when the walls are not exactly the same. Like if there is one element that's like slightly different in one, we will run the risk of that one being overridden by perhaps whichever one you select first. So it's a bit of a tricky feature, but I think it's well worth putting in.
Okay, rolling on. This one's quite a long one, so bear with me, from Abbas. He says, hi, I've got a question about modeling the lift. As an example, let's say we have a 3-level house. On the ground floor, around the lift, we have a garage. Sometimes after running the simulation, I see there's a massive heating load and cooling load needed for the lift. When the lift is on the ground floor, there will be a void on the first and second floor, but the lift has a ceiling. But we will have to specify stairs on the first and second floor. I hope it says, I was wondering if the calculation is really correct.
So I've had conversations with NatHers about this because when assessing and modeling jobs, I don't necessarily agree with the NatHers tech note. So what I can give you an overview now is my personal opinion. It's not energy inspection saying go ahead and do this, but pretty much what I've asked NatHers to do is to readdress lifts being their own daytime zone, and they've, you know, offline conversations is a lift is permanently closed. So when you model a door for a lift, a door, when you model it in the Cheneth engine, can be opened and closed and allows ventilation to move between one zone and another. A lift, once you exit, is permanently closed. There is no ventilation. It is a closed off zone. So in my personal opinion, and I'm not recommending you do this, but perhaps it's a conversation you can have with NatHers or your own assessment team, is that lifts should not be modeled as separate zones because they do not contribute to ventilation and they do not contribute to heating and cooling loads. They are part of a zone, as in a walk-in laundry, a small walk-in laundry would be, because it's sealed off and it has no ventilation. So I have pushed this to NatHers, and I do think it's a grey area, and I do see it modelled differently by assessors. I see it ignored in models by different assessors, and there's a definite question mark with regards to that. So yeah, I think it's an issue. It's not a Bers Pro issue. It's a modelling issue with regards to following the NatHers tech note. So I hear you with that. It's a painful thing to have, especially if it's in a basement car park.
Stephen Hardy says, how come the cancellation button does not work once the simulation starts?
So the cancellation button does work. It's evolved, I suppose, from 4.4. In 4.4, you can crash the simulation and you can see it stop. You press the cancel button, and depending on the size of the project, it will either cancel straight away if it's a small project, or it'll cancel to a point where it hits the Cheneth engine. Scott, I think you're probably
Yeah, sure.
can give a better overview of this one than me, because I asked you of the same question.
Yeah. Okay. So just to let you know, this is going to be different in 5.3, because then we do have background processing. With the current way that processing is happening, is that we're being blocked by the simulation. So what happens is we send the simulation out, and you're busy trying to click that cancel button, but we have to wait until the first now Cheneth fires back messages every few, well, I think it's 12 messages in total, one for every month. So we have to wait for it to fire back its first message before we can break out. So unfortunately, that's just the nature of the current version and how it can't sandbox. But in the next version, because it's happening in the background, well, first of all, it doesn't make that much difference if you cancel or don't, because it's just sitting in the background, not annoying you. But also, you should be able to cancel out of that, and we'll just kill that process in the background because we're not relying on it.
Yeah, so depending on the size of the project, press cancel, you might just have to wait 5 seconds. It might be 8 seconds, something like that.
Yeah.
Carrying on, and Adrian Zarb says, as an Accurate user 17 years ago, then moving on with Bers 4.1, after 2 years of Accurate, the materials library in Accurate is much more detailed, which isn't a criticism of Bers. The Bers idea is fantastic. To migrate the Accurate library in Bers in the future would enhance the software even further. What do you think, he says?
That's going to happen, isn't it, Scott?
Well, the answer is yes, but it's not a simple yes. The answer is yes, but better. I mean, quite frankly, we're not impressed by what Accurate is offering. Bers has a simplicity to it that all of our users enjoy. We want to provide that functionality, but still keep that simple idea. We want to make it easy for you to do rather than difficult like Accurate.
Awesome. Moving on. And there's a couple of questions here that are similar. I've had a couple of jobs set up in 5.1.7, which now don't reach 7 stars in 5.1.9. So we need to understand why.
Scott, would you like to answer that one?
Sure. Okay, so there's a bit of a technical explanation for this. And what's supposed to happen is that the same star rating is supposed to map perfectly from, say, NCC 2019 standard to NCC 2022 standard. Now, that's the ideal situation. In reality, they can't do it. What they do is they try to get it as close as they can, but because they're dealing with 69 different climate zones, some are going to be closer than others when it comes to this mapping. So unfortunately, there will be situations where you get something that is significantly different in star rating from one to the other. But that's just, I guess, reality getting in the way of the ideal.
Yeah, no, Scott, they're not talking about 4.4 to 5. They're talking about 5.17 to 5.19.
Oh, sorry. Okay, so when you do a minor accreditation, we have to be within 0.2. What is it? 0.2 of a star in order to get that reaccreditation. So we go through and we model that, and so it should be within 0.2. Now, the last test that I went through, it's within 0.1, which means that we're well within that tolerance that that NatHERS requires. But you're right, there will be situations where you have a 7 star that might drop to 6.9, or there might be a 6.9 that goes up to 7. Unfortunately, when we're refining or removing bugs out of the system, there are going to be these slight artifacts as we get closer to the correct value.
Yeah.
I do apologize, but we can't actually fix bugs and have the numbers always match.
And I think what we've noticed, because me and Scott have dealt with a few of these support tickets where it's moved like maybe 0.1 or 0.2 of a megajoule, which is nothing in the grand scheme of things, but it's huge when you're at 7 and it's dropping to 6.9. So absolutely feel your pain there. But what we've also noticed is when you get to 7 stars, 0.1 of a megajoule change really can impact. So everything we're doing is to mitigate any change. But as Scott says, sometimes if there is a change, we make sure it's as minor as possible.
All right, let's keep going, guys. Just a few more left to go. Zoran is asking, when we have vertical shading on the balustrade that affects the bedroom sliding door. No, I've asked that one, surely. I've asked
Yeah,
that.
you've asked that one.
I just think it's a really well-worded question, so I thought I'd ask it again. Okay, so Gambis, okay, in whole of home assessment,
Oh, sorry about that. I'm trying to click those away from your list there.
have we asked, we've asked this one, have we? Okay, I beg your pardon. Okay, so Keith is asking, is the shading of roof area by solar panels something we can add at some stage?
I think that's been asked of Natters and we're ignoring it at the moment. I can double check
Okay,
because, yeah.
Yeah, look, I like to have realism, and in realistic circumstances, there will be shading on solar panels. And so that does need to be addressed, but unfortunately there's no latitude for us to do that ourselves. That has to go through formal processes.
Okay. Rob Fawcett's asking, when will certificates be free to amend for address changes instead of being charged for small errors or changes to lot and street numbers?
Unfortunately, at this stage, they won't be free. And the reason being is because you could have 12 different units on the one street number. And look, Rob, it's a great question because I know that you guys, work within the rules and you produce certificates correctly. But we've had multiple Bers Pro users use Bers Pro incorrectly and generate one certificate and then edit it to unit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So at this stage, we can't allow that, and none of the other software providers allow that, due to making sure that users use the software in accordance with the end user license agreement. And look, I hear your pain. I've put A instead of B, and it's user beware, because I just have to end up paying an extra $30, which hurts. So yeah, it's because of keeping users using the certificate in accordance with the end user license agreement.
I will add one thing, and that is that this isn't imposed by our software. We set, as you know, we send certificates to the HStar portal, and they're the ones that detect changes in the address and determine whether or not it's part of the same certificate or another one. So that they have a bunch of rules for working out whether or not we're dealing with one address or multiple. And unfortunately, sometimes that's not going to work in your favor.
And it pushes down the chain. We get charged by CSIRO for every certificate generated. So they would, it's a process.
All right. Daryl says, I've noticed this. Having to stop and clear that warning when it comes up as you're starting to type the zone name is just an unnecessary step in the process.
At the moment, it's a necessary step because of the whole of home limitation. So as Scott said, once we get the communication from CSIRO that whole of home characters can be increased past 15, we will remove it.
Yep. And one other thing I can say is, you don't actually have to lose focus. I think if you were to click the enter key or just type the enter key, that will get rid of the dialogue that pops up.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody anonymously has said, in the new interface mode, and if it's a cavity wall, can it also show if you have added insulation?
Yeah, I don't see why not. That's another feature for Scott to code.
Okay, let me just make sure I've got that one.
Insulation into a cavity wall.
Yep, yeah. No, I've listed that down as some of my improvements. So yep, you've been
Okay.
listened to, and we've got that on our list.
Will we have a proper zoom tool rather than the 10, 20, 40 system we have now?
5.3. 5.3, you are going, it's going to blow your mind how easy it is to zoom in and out and the detail that you can zoom into.
5.3 is when, Scott?
That's coming out August.
August. Very good.
I'd like to get it to you earlier, but unfortunately, with it being such a big change, we do need to do a lot of testing to ensure that it is absolutely rock solid for you. But yes, I've been playing with this for months now, and it is just such a breeze. It's I don't know if you've used these sorts of things before, but you use your mouse scroller, you hold down the control key, and then you just scroll forward to zoom in and scroll back to zoom out, and it's smooth as butter. You're really going to enjoy it.
Sabrina has asked in capitals, so I think this is probably related to a previous answer we gave, but the question is, why are stairs added to lifts and not double height voids?
Personally, I don't believe stairs and again, this isn't an energy inspection advice, because of a lift being a constant no ventilation. I don't even know if flooring should be removed for that. I'm going to open a can of worms up here, but that's just off the cuff. You know, lifts are an unusual thing, and yeah, I don't think the way we're modeling them is necessarily correct at the moment, but that's my personal opinion. Sorry if I'm opening up a can of worms.
On the homeward stretch here, but I do want to raise this one here because it relates to a question we already answered, but updating internal walls in Bers 5 using defaults. So the example is, let's say the internal walls around the garage have R2 insulation while the rest do not. When we need to upgrade that R2 insulation to R2.5, we have to update it wall by wall. Previously selecting only those having default values would update those specific walls. However, now nothing happens when we update from defaults selecting this option. We either have to select all element types, but this will update all wall insulation. This issue persists in version 5.1.9. Can this be addressed in the upcoming version?
Please put that on a support ticket with Bers profile, and we will look at it for you. And just an overview, we get support tickets where people say, I've got a bug and it's not working, but don't give me a description of how the bugs happened or the Bers profile. Because what we need to do, what Scott and me need to do, is we actually need to recreate the issue so that we can understand it better and fix it. So for all support tickets, please take the time. And I know you're busy, but we can solve the issue and not have to come back to you and ask multiple questions. So just put a description, put the Bers profile in. If and yes, we'll reenact it for you and solve it.
Yep. And by the way, that was a brilliant description just there. So if you give us that level of detail, that does really help a lot.
Yeah. Very good. And the last one is from Peter, just saying, thanks for the webinar. Can you send a certificate of attendance, which we said we will do to people. So unless there's any more, still 70 odd people on the call, which is awesome, but we are done. So thank you all very much for your attendance. I'm a terrible Q&A master because I'm half an hour over time, but I apologize and I'll get better next time. But thank you all very much. And have a good day.
Sorry to butt in. We won't automatically be sending out the CBD certificates. Please email Trish and she will send one to you, because we've probably got people that don't require the CBD certificate.
Okie dokie. All right. Well, that's a wrap then. Thanks, everyone. And thanks for staying the course, all 73 of you. That's amazing. We'll see you next time.
See you next time. All right. Cheers.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.